Hey, what's up, guys? So, Sneak Your Tech here, and I'm doing a little tutorial here on how to use Sony Vegas, and this is for Tay's Bootleg. Some of you guys know him as Danny, but he's got a YouTube channel, and he's recently tried to get into Sony Vegas and editing and stuff. So, I'm gonna make a little tutorial. So right here, my mouse is on right now. It's on the preview window. This is where your clips will be shown, basically, when you put them in the timeline, which is where my mouse is now. So this is the timeline, and you can click anywhere on it and it'll go into it. And it's labeled 15 seconds, 29.29, 44, 59. So that's going to show you how long your video is, and it's going to show you on the preview when you click it. It's going to show you on the little preview window. And so you can hit play and it'll play your clips. And so here under it, you got the record option, which is pretty self-explanatory. Loop playback is so that when you get to the end of the video, it's going to restart from the beginning. So that's a pretty useful tool. Play from start is when you hit it, it'll play from the beginning of it. And play will play from where you last paused it. So if you hit play, it's going to start going. You hit pause, and play again, it's going to start going again. But if you hit play from start, it goes all the way back to the beginning. So, again, that's pretty useful. Then you've got, go to start, go to end, and you can also scroll frame by frame, which is really useful for when you want a lot of details in your animations, your videos, your montages. So, let's get started down here then on the timeline. You're going to have your video overlay, which lets you put like an overlay, a watermark. You can put anything, and it's going to go on top of your video. There's also this text layer I just clicked on. That'll let you put text there. And, you got your video. That's where you're going to end up putting your video. And you got your voice and your music tracks. So that's for audio and stuff. And you can also add sound effects. And now these are just the default ones. You can add plenty more layers by going over here and then right-clicking and insert video track. You can duplicate track, you can delete, you can rename, you can switch. Like if you'd rather have your overlay above your text, you can just click and drag. So that's really useful for the interface of this. And then over here is your project media. So you can drag this, get the preview and the media the size you want. Then you can add all your clips over here into this little box, and then you can drag them down into the timeline. So that's what you mostly use that for. Explorer is when you want to go into your folders and get more clips. Video effects is pretty cool. This is what you're going to use for montages. So stuff like add noise, which is going to make it crackly. Black and white is, it's going to convert all the colors to black and white, and you can do this by percentages. Or you can click default, and then you can edit it, and you can customize the amount of black you want. Like, if you don't want one of these standard percentages, like, say you want 33%, you can click default, you can drag it down, and you can do it yourself. Black restore is the next one down. Then you've got border, you got brightness and contrast, you got broadcast colors. Now, a bunch of these aren't going to be too useful, but border's pretty cool for doing montage effects. Brightness and contrast, you might want to turn up brightness during, like, a shot on your montage. So that's what you're going to use that for. Broadcast colors is mostly just, what it's going to do is it's going to make sure your colors are accurate to, TVs, because TVs have a different color set than computer screens. Bump map is going to be like a spotlight effect, as you can see. There's a couple cool ones, and then default for any effect basically will let you customize it yourself if you don't like the presets. So channel blend basically overrides all the colors and just makes them, a different color. Chroma blur is going to be one of the many blur effects you have on Sony Vegas. So that's a pretty useful thing, for any video. Like, if you have to blur out someone's face, or, you want to do a blur effect, and again, a montage, because that's what a lot of people use this for. So chroma key is how you do green screens. So you can have a blue screen, a green screen, you can do a red screen, but again, most commonly it's going to be green screen. I mean, I've even made my own presets for like black screen and stuff. So you can do some really cool effects. You can do white screen. Color balance is going to be like changing the color and adding highlights of a certain color. Like if you want to give your highlights or shadows like a green or red tint, that's basically what that's going to do. And then over here we have color corrector, which is going to be pretty similar, but it's going to be a little more drastic in that it's not only going to affect highlights and shadows, but it's going to affect all the colors a little bit more. Color corrector is basically like an Instagram filter. That's the best way to really put it. And here's a bunch I've used for montages and other stuff. A lot of these are ones I made, but the top few, like these are all defaults. And then, again, you can always make your own like I did, so that's pretty useful. And color corrector secondary, that's going to let you add a second color correction. So if you want to get an even more dramatic effect, like as you can see, this one I made, it kind of gives a pale, very realistic effect. Color curves is somewhere in the middle of color balance and color corrector, I'd say. Again, this is pretty useful. You can get some really cool effects with this if you mess around with it. This one is going to be, a very etched kind of look. I don't really use this one too much, this convulsion kernel. But again, play around with it. That's pretty cool. Cookie cutter is a really awesome thing. It lets you do like overlays and stuff if you want to do a face cam in the corner. Or what I used it for is I had the cookie cutter expand right after I took a shot. And what it did was it cut out the outside and faded into the next clip, if that makes sense. I used that one in a montage. Deform, it's just going to stretch and skew your picture, as you can see here. Film effects is going to be like the very old school, like film quality stuff. And film grain will add the crackles and stuff from old films as well. Gaussian blur is like a very extreme blur for the most part. But again, I made stuff like where it adds a yellowy glow, and you can do some cool stuff with that. And glow is something you gotta use lightly or it's gonna be pretty crazy. I used this in Crimson Red's 1-year montage, actually, during one of the throwing knife clips. Gradient map, you can get some cool effects. You can get like a sunset effect, a night vision effect. There's some cool stuff here. HSL is kind of like how saturated everything's going to be and how bright all the colors are. Like, you can get some extreme colors here. You can get like an inverted effect. And here is also inverted. This is basically going to flip all your colors. I don't really use that. Lens flare is going to be like, it's a really cool effect. Like when the sun shines on the camera and you get like that lens effect. It's really cool. Levels is going to be like your brightness and stuff for the most part. I mean, as you can see, there's some cool effects though. Light rays, basically, it kind of, as you can see here, it kind of stretches the light out and it makes it look like almost like a starburst effect or something. Linear blur is another blur, except it's a directional blur. Instead of blurring out in a circle, it'll blow either horizontally or vertically, or 45 degree, 60 degree, 30. You got a lot of stuff here. Magic Bullet Quick Looks is a program that gives you a bunch of like Instagram style filters and stuff. And you can basically click them. Mask generator is just going to be a mask. If you use Photoshop, you'll understand that. Median is going to be this right here. Then you got Minimax. You got a mirror effect, which is going to flip it. New Blue is, again, another paid plugin thing. So here you got like a newspaper effect for like an old style like comic book look. You got Pinch and Punch, which is going to pinch it in or pull it out. So here we have a different one. We have pixelate now. So pixelate is just going to really pixelate your video, and what this is really useful for is if you pixelate at the end of a video to transition from one clip to the next clip. And you can use this for montages, you can just use this for regular videos. And what you do is you pixelate the end of one clip and the beginning of another clip, and it makes a really nice transition. You got quick blur, which is just another blur. Radial blur is a very circular blur. Ooh, whoops, we're back in Explorer. But anyway, video effects, you got radial pixelate. That's going to be basically the same thing. Saturation is, as you can see here, it's going to boost the midtones or desaturate them. Sepia is going to be like a very brown or green effect, depending on which one you use. So you've got a few here to choose from. But that one's pretty straightforward. Sharpen is going to make the lines very harsh and stuff. Sorry about that. I don't really know how to explain that one. Spherize is gonna... It's kind of like a bubbly effect. As you can see here, this eye looks like some anime or something. Stabilize is gonna remove a lot of the shaking in your video. So if you have a shaky camera, Stabilize is gonna help you, and it's gonna kind of fix that. Stereoscopic 3D is if you have a 3D camera. Swirl is, as you can see here, just a swirl effect. Threshold is going to be this very bright effect, like a 60s poster or something. And timecode, just, it's like, you know, those old video cameras, and they would have like the little timestamp, and it would say the day or year it was recorded, or how long it was being recorded for, like, you have 3 minutes on this tape, or something like that. TV look is gonna, like, add some, like, glowing pixel effect, as you can see here. And bad sync is gonna add, like, a shaky TV effect, as if it was losing signal. Unsharp mask is kind of like, you got negatives, you got little, blurs, and a whole bunch of stuff. You can really go crazy with this. Wave is just a sort of ripply effect. And white balance just, you know, adds a little white tint usually. So media generators is where you're going to get, like, your checkerboard effects and stuff like this. You're going to get gradients, which you can use to, like, you can use the elliptical ones for, like, sniper scopes and stuff in a video. Or what you can do is you can drag a gradient in and use it as an overlay. And we'll let that load and do its thing. But what you'll do is you can use the gradient, and what you can do is you can fade it, and so basically what that'll do is it'll make it more transparent, and you can almost use it as like an Instagram filter kind of thing. So you'll see the clip under it, but it'll still be there. And so here we brought up this menu, and you can completely customize the gradient. You can pick where you want the light part of it, where you want the dark part of it. You can rotate it. So, like, what you can do is you can have it like a bright area from the corner, let's say, like that, and click that, and we'll put a green one under it. So we'll let that one do its thing, and you only see the red one, but see, there's this little bar, and it's a transparency, and you can drag it down, and you'll see more of the green through it. So that's a really cool effect you can get there, and if this was a clip, it would look really cool, you know, if it was under this. But that's mainly what you use the gradients for. The credit roll is, you know, going to be credits at the end of the video, where you can say who your cameraman was, your editor, you know, who was in the video, you know, you can add shoutouts. So that's a really useful thing. New Blue Titler, I can't use this one. This one always seems to crash my Sony Vegas. So I would not recommend paying for that one. If anyone decides to try and pay for it. Noise texture is again going to be sort of like a little crackly effect. Solid color is very similar to the gradients, except it's going to be just one color. Test pattern is going to be, you know, all these things you would see like on a TV screen if the channel goes blank or something. And there's also this cool gradient right here. It's a like a rainbow gradient. And let's see what happens if we overlay this. So you get that sort of effect as opposed to just regular. See how much adding the overlay changes it? You go from that to that. So overlays, when you put them on top of a clip, it's definitely going to make a noticeable difference depending on how transparent you put it. But yeah, that's a lot what you can do there. Titles is going to be, like titles. You can do intros. You can do opening sequences. There's lots of stuff you can do here. You can just add overlay text. Like if you're doing a video and you forgot to mention something, instead of putting an annotation, you can put text because annotations can't be seen on the phones and tablets and stuff. And you can do all sorts of cool effects like this Fuel Clan presents. I did it in a montage. I did that there. And you can do animated text like scrolling, popping up, rolling, just sort of that. There's all sorts of stuff. There's like bouncing ones and flying in ones. And then legacy text is just going to be still text, whereas most of these except default are animated. But again, everything in Sony Vegas is customizable. Like you can click and open it up and customize it. So that's really useful. Another important thing to mention is that, you have to make sure to go up here and hit File and Save As to save it. But to upload it to YouTube, you have to hit Render As. So that's a big difference. Saving it is going to be as a Sony Vegas file, but rendering it is going to be as a video file that you can use for YouTube. So as you can see here, these are all VF, Vegas file. So these are all some of my montages and videos and other stuff I've done. However, they're not going to be able to upload to YouTube until I render them. So that's something important to remember. So another thing is trimmer. You can use that to trim, like a clip. Or you can just go right here with your mouse and trim event end and shorten it. Or you can shorten it from the beginning. And so that's really useful. And another thing is that it's generated media. So at any time you can click here and change it. So if you ever watched a video and wondered how they zoomed in with their video editor, this is event pan and crop. So what you can do is you can zoom in. See, you can do all sorts of stuff like that. And I'm going to hit Control Z and set it back to default. Control Z is always going to be your edit undo in any program pretty much. And if you hit Control and then click, you can get these cool sort of border effects. So it'll do like that very cinematic look. I always do it on montages. So again, you hit Control and then you click and drag down, and see it does that cinematic like bars like you see in the movies. So that's how they do that. Or you could do it this way if you wanted and make it look like a phone video or something. Also, there's a rotate, so you can rotate. So that's a pretty cool effect if you want to do that. And you can click on any of these corners and drag them in to zoom. So that's going to be what you use that for. You can do a lot of stuff with this. You can pan, you can zoom in, and you can create keyframes on this timeline so that you can create like animations in a way. So on this keyframe, we'll make it very big, and on this one, we'll make it smaller, and it'll gradually transition in between the 2 points, and it'll make like a very cool video effect. So that's what you use that for, if that makes sense. And then when you play it, you can see that it actually moves. But that's what that's used for. And another thing is that there's also this bar, and these are all shortcuts that'll help you. So save, it tells you use Control S, you got your properties, and all sorts of stuff. So another thing to keep in mind is that it's always very important to go to properties and disable resample, because what resample does is it sort of blurs all the frames together. It makes it kind of choppy. You don't want your video to be choppy, so always disable resample, because it's really not very good, and I don't know why they make it as default, to be honest with you. But yeah, you got your project media, you got your Explorer, you got your video effects, you got this, and you got this. So essentially what you can do is that you can use this timeline now, and you can layer all these effects and, gradients and transitions. And, you can get a cool effect. And what you can do is you can overlap videos, and it'll sort of, kind of do like a little fade in between them, if you saw there. So you can also right-click on things and open up their properties. And, you can constantly change things. You can go to event effects, and you can go through these folders, and there's plenty of effects. There's creative, color, blur, light, utility. And I would definitely say to mess around with these things, because there's really so much you can do. There's also, remember, the keyframes, and there's a lot of stuff here you can use. And, Vegas it's not anything like Movie Maker or any of the other softwares you might use for video editing. But, yeah, this is a much more professional software, and you can do really good stuff with this, but there's a lot you have to learn, so I would definitely say keep at it, don't quit, but you're going to have to work hard to really learn how to use it, definitely. It's not going to be something easy to use. So when you right-click, there's also some other cool stuff you can do. You can synchronize it, you can group things together, you can disable resample, of course, because that's very important to do right here. You can reverse a clip, which will make it play backwards. You can split a clip into 2 clips, and that's really good for, you can split a clip at 2 different points, and then what I usually do is I'll split a clip at a point, and then I'll split a clip at another point, and then I'll delete the middle, and that's good for doing, like, cut commentaries and stuff like that. So that's what you're going to use that for. Trimming is more for, like, when you're trying to get out something that's in the beginning, like if you stutter right at the beginning of the video, that's what you're going to use that for. And trim end is like, you might want to trim the part off of like a vlog or a commentary, like where you're just turning off your microphone or disabling the recording program or stuff like that. So you got your standard delete, copy, cut, paste, that all is going to be pretty standard. But video event effects and media effects, those are going to be like, your blur, your color correction, your green screen. So if you can see, and you can add plugins, so you can download and buy all sorts of, like extras. So you can edit generated media from here. And again, remember, you can also, go to event pan and crop and zoom in or rotate or, add the cinematic little bars. There's a lot of stuff you can do. Also, if you can see this blue little dot, this is going to be your fade out. So what you can do is you can drag this, and what it's going to do is that when your video starts, it'll start fading it out from that point, and it'll fade to black. So that's going to be what you use that for. So I'll demonstrate on this clip. We'll fade out, and we'll play it. So it's doing those black bars, and then it faded out. So you can get some really cool effects with that, as you saw. And yeah, so that's what you're going to be using that for. And again, this playback window has all sorts of settings. So preview quality, best is what you're really going to want, like for your final draft. That's what you're going to watch it with. But draft mode is, if you have a really long video, you might have to go down to auto draft or, good or full or half quality or quarter quality. But basically, what it's going to do is it's going to not render every single detail, but it's going to make sure your computer doesn't overheat or that your video is lagging while you're playing it. So that's pretty useful. And there's also a few other things. You know, there's the edit menu, there's the view menu, and this will add the extra toolbars like transitions. You know, you can add that back in. So transitions is going to be your 3D blinds, your 3D cascade. And there's some really cool stuff though here. And some of them actually add like cool effects like a metallic effect or a glow effect or a blur effect as long as doing a transition. But most of these are, you know, you've probably seen them somewhere before. But again, using these transitions add an extra touch. They definitely make your video feel more professional. But if you accidentally drag your thing out, like I did, you can just go to view and look for the menu that's missing and you'll find it. Insert is going to be inserting another track for audio or video or text or the generated media, which is, again, the gradients and stuff. You know, you can insert a slideshow. You got some other tools over here for your audio and video properties. You know, you can even export to PSP. You can burn DVDs. There's a lot of stuff you can do on here. You got all this over here. So, yeah, and, you know, you got about, and it'll tell you stuff about that. You got all these flash, gradient, iris. But for the most part, that's pretty much it. But, you know, definitely, it's not an easy program to use, but if you work hard and, you know, you can definitely master it. It's not impossible to master. And I really self-taught myself this, and, you know, definitely, you know, follow along with the tutorial. Try to, you know, do what I'm doing and just copy and learn a bit from it. And you can pull off some really cool stuff. Like, just look, I did this in a couple seconds, but it looks pretty cool, this little gradient flip effect. But yeah, there's all sorts of stuff you can do. Just remember to use the trims, you know, the fades and the opacity, you know, the flipping and the panning and the rotating. And it'll definitely, you know, make your video look really nice. And you can always add some, you know, color correction and green screens. And yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And, you know, I worked really hard on this video, and definitely add this to a playlist if you know you want to come back and you want to watch it again. But that's all for now. Stay tuned for more videos as always. And see you next time.